I am going to be talking about what we're doing here in Philadelphia, and a lot of what has been discussed has really set the stage for my talk. Um, First, before we kind of get into what we're doing here in Philadelphia, I am the city forester from the City of Philadelphia Parks and Recreation Department. We manage over 10,000 acres of parkland, and over half of that is natural areas, forests, wetlands, meadows. We also manage all of the street trees in the right-of-way. We have at least 130,000 of those. And this is a map of the entirety of the urban forest from our tree canopy assessment that was released in 2019. In 2019, we released our tree canopy assessment. So similar to what Beatrice was talking about for Toledo, we worked with the University of Vermont Spatial Analysis Lab to put together an analysis using LiDAR data, and it showed us what our current tree canopy cover is, as well as where we've gained and lost over the last 10 years. So we do have 20% tree canopy cover, but it ranges significantly from neighborhood to neighborhood, from as low as 2 or 3% to over 45% in some areas. And we unfortunately have lost 6% of our tree canopy in the years between 2008 and 2018. So that is about 1,000 football fields worth of tree canopy. And we released this information in advance of our Philly Tree Plan strategic plan effort. One of the other pieces of information that really kind of led to us doing a strategic plan is our Office of Sustainability and the health department here in Philadelphia used land surface data to do a heat vulnerability index, and we found out that some neighborhoods of Philadelphia are up to 22 degrees hotter than the surrounding area outside of the city. And so this data was really important as we went into our strategic plan, which is called the Philly Tree Plan. We released it in February of 2023. So I'm going to focus my portion of the talk today on how we used heat data and other variables to prioritize engagement and implementation of the Philly Tree Plan. So the Philly Tree Plan is a strategic plan. It's a 10-year plan, and environmental justice is one of the core values that we used throughout the plan. We wanted to make sure that residents of the city, especially in the areas that are most impacted by a low tree canopy, had a significant say in how we created the plan and in the implementation of the plan. So one of the first things we did when we were creating the plan is we mapped priority areas of the city. We used a number of different variables, and heat was one of the main variables. It was the only variable that we weighted twice as much as the other variables. And here are the other things that we use to identify these priority areas. So canopy cover was one. We had some public health data like asthma rates, mental health, and cancer data, traffic volumes and air quality, as well as income as a sociodemographic variable. And so this map that you see here is something that we use throughout the process to engage people, to make sure that people in those areas had a voice in the process. One of the ways we did that is that we attended community meetings clustered as much as possible in those priority areas. These are community meetings that were already happening, so civic associations, business associations. We got on their calendar to talk about trees, but mostly to listen. And then we attended those same community meetings once we had a draft plan, to make sure that they saw themselves reflected in that draft plan. We also did a neighborhood ambassador program. So the beautiful pictures that you saw a little earlier are these folks on the right are some of the 22 neighborhood ambassadors that we engaged for a 6-week program, because we know that when you are doing a strategic plan and you're speaking to the community, residents are going to talk to their friends and family in ways that are much more honest than they will talk to a contractor, a consultant, or a city employee. So we identified 5 of the priority neighborhoods, and we found people in those neighborhoods who are community leaders, but not the president of the civic, not the president of the business association. A lot of those people are tapped out. Everyone goes to them. We asked them to identify people in the concentric circle around them who were not necessarily taking leadership positions, but were interested in greening in their neighborhoods. And so they did a 6-week stipended program where they learned about urban forestry, but most importantly, they learned about how to interview their family and neighbors and how to transcribe that information and be an ambassador from their neighborhood to us, to the plan, so that we understood better how people were encountering trees, the challenges and the joys that they were experiencing. So all told, we did a citywide survey and a number of other different tools, but altogether, 60% of our responses that we were using to identify, the goals of the plan came from those high and medium priority zip codes in the city. And then in the plan, we also use these priority neighborhoods to identify specific funding goals and planting goals for what it would take to reach a benchmark of 30% tree canopy in each neighborhood. This is a way of figuring out what it will take to do that, but we all know that geographically desirable tree planting locations are not always socially desirable. So each of these 7 neighborhoods has specific goals, but also as we move forward, we will be coordinating and laying out a plan for trees in the neighborhood that is led by the community in these neighborhoods. We were also fortunate, like Toledo, to participate in the NOAA's Urban Heat Island mapping campaign. The heat data that we used for the Philly tree plan is surface level data, but we now have this incredible real feel data that is taken using air temperature and humidity close to the ground. It is so much more precise, and it is really, we are able to use it to further make the case for trees in the city. We have an incredible partner in the Nature Conservancy. They put out a wonderful story map about the citywide heat ride. And in the story map, it really uses case making about heat to advocate for tree planting. And they even have this amazing interactive map where you can see how the priority areas for the tree plan overlap with the highest heat areas of the city. We also used our prioritization from the Philly tree plan to further zoom in on how to help residents prioritize outreach in their own communities. So the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society is an incredible partner. They manage the Tree Tenders program, which is a training and volunteer tree planting program where people across the city will take the training and then participate every spring and fall in planting trees with other volunteers in their neighborhood. And through this map, they can now see which specific streets in their neighborhood have the highest priority for needing more trees, and also have the most opportunity, and where those two things intersect. We also in Philly have been fortunate to receive an IRA grant through the Forest Service for $12 million. We are using all of that money to go into the priority areas for the Philly tree plan, which overlap almost exactly with the CGEST map for the city, for the entire country that the federal government is using. This grant is going to include workforce training and support for small businesses, similar to what Toledo is doing with their workforce training. We want to make sure that investment in the urban forest is going to also mean investment in the people, especially in those priority neighborhoods. So we don't want the money to be going exclusively to large nurseries outside of the city, which is very common for large urban areas like Philadelphia. You don't have internal, you don't have nurseries where you can buy trees inside the city. So we are trying to find ways where we can direct this investment directly to the people of the city. Of course, we will be doing tree planting in the priority areas, also crucial trust building maintenance in schools, neighborhood parks, and along our street tree canopy. We are also going to be providing support for hazardous tree removal and looking at our sidewalks, because trees can be a burden to people, and part of our Philly Tree Plan is addressing that burden and figuring out how we can support people so that they will be more comfortable taking on a new tree on or nearby their property. And most excitedly for me, we have reserved over $1 million to re-grant out to small community groups in those neighborhoods so that they can do their own tree planting. And that could be community engagement as well. There's a lot, it's just so flexible that we're really excited for the way that this will be an investment in those neighborhoods specifically. So I kind of rushed through that, but hopefully there are some links now in the chat where you can look in more depth on some of these things. So I'll hand it over to Casey.